Adventure Ho, and welcome back to another episode of the Ducktail Dads podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mack, joined again by Ryan and Nathaniel. The crew is back together again, and look at this. We're on a hot streak of like 3 or 4 weeks, gents. Way to go. This week, it is Winterspell pre-release week. We are going to talk all about Winterspell, specifically on limited prep, because the opening weekend we see a lot of sealed, not much draft, but just limited in general. That tends to be the big thing, the hot ticket over the course of the opening weekend for a lot of these sets. So very excited to talk about the cards that we're hoping to pull during a limited type of setting. But before that, we've got to do our favorite segment, What's New in Your World? Nathaniel, let's start with you. What is new in your world?
So for a Lorcana perspective, I think I can be relatively quick here. We are planning on doing a sealed event later this week. I think, Mac, as we were kind of chatting today in our group chat, the anticipation and the eagerness to just play with new cards, I think, is overwhelming at this point. Time of recording is Monday, the week of pre-release, and it's like, my goodness, Friday can't come fast enough. So at this point, right, it's just a matter of like, even if my pulls are buns, I don't care. I just want to play in sealed. That's really exciting and such a fun way to open up a set. The store that we're going to in particular is a store located in Fridley, Minnesota, called Kraken Hits. They're really generous to their player base. It's just a really great store to go visit. I've been there for a few different events. It's just such a fun vibe there. Tons of really good players also tend to play in those events too. So I'm just excited to be part of the buzz. I think the last time I was really part of the pre-release buzz was when you guys went to an event at Kraken Hits a few sets ago, set 7, yeah. And I was on dad duty, so I just bought a trove and said hello, and then me and my boys left. So I kind of got to experience it, but like not really. So I'm just super pumped to be able to participate in that. From a personal life perspective, I upgraded my cell phone for the first time in 5 or 6 years, so that was kind of cool. I can now, if you're familiar with some of our social media things, you might see clearer video now or more content because I can actually take clear pictures. So that's exciting. I think anytime you get an upgrade, right, it's always a cool feel with a new iPhone. So very simple, easy peasy. But yeah. Ryan, what's new in your world, man?
What's new in my world? Not much on the Lorcana front. I got a couple more proxy decks sleeved up, ready to go, but unfortunately I've not been able to play them. I was planning to get online with Uncle Connor over either Friday or Saturday last week, but or Thursday or Friday, but I hit a wall. I caught a GI bug from my littlest, and I got worn out. But we got through it, thankfully. It was a pretty brief one, and shout out to the spouse. My wife was incredible. She gave me the space to just, exist and survive for a brief period. And so that was hugely impactful. And then had a heartwarming little interaction with my toddler as they participated in the taking care of dad activities. And so that was really sweet and warmed my heart, and I think helped me heal up a little bit faster, so that was nice. On a personal front, I guess that's probably my biggest update from a personal front, and otherwise we're just getting through the days. Kids are growing up and hitting milestones and just enjoying every moment as much as we can. Savoring them and cherishing the precious moments in between, the little interactions, and having the teachable moments and making sure we make the most of those, but then at the same time making sure we're making even more fun the more fun moments as well. Mac, what's new in your world?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you guys. This past week was tough in our house. A lot going on, just very busy. The work life was just tough. We're reaching a lot of inflection points in my work life with some big milestones on the projects that I'm working on. And with that, I think my boys over the course of this past weekend were just extra rowdy. So I've just been exhausted. All in good fun. Like they're all happy. Like so we had a couple friends come over for the Super Bowl just to chill out, but we all have kids, so it just was loud. We went to the Science Museum, which is just crazy when kids just run around and are so excited for everything. You got to make sure you're keeping up with them. So yeah, and we're also planning a bathroom remodel. So it was just a lot of commotion, I'll say, and it was a tough week. Very tired overall. But off to a good start this week, this Monday. So excited to record here with you guys as I do every other week, and just looking forward. But on the flip side, I think with that, every night when the boys went down, when I wasn't hanging out with my wife, I think that's where the hype of Winterspell came in for me. I was able to hop online and do some online testing with Scrooge. He actually reached out to me on Saturday and was like, I get the sense that you're kind of need a break. Do you want to jump online tonight? And I was like, yeah, that would be really, really helpful. So we did some online testing, and I have built 2 decks, one of them with 2 versions, being Ruby Sapphire. I think I alluded to that last week. And then I've also built an Amber Sapphire deck, and that was really fun to get used to how that plays with. So we did a little play testing, but yeah, it was a tough week, but I feel rejuvenated and ready to go for this week, and we'll progress. Keep on keeping on, right? That's what life is with kids.
Before we get into the limited chat, I do have a question that we need to talk about because we had a fan interaction or a listener interaction over the last week. Mack, did you do your homework, and how are you feeling about Amber Ruby this week?
So I unfortunately did not do any deep dive into it because of the craziness that has been happening in kind of the personal side of life, just family, boys being busy and whatnot. Swimming lessons also started too. I didn't even mention that. So a lot of chaos. But I have looked at some tutorial videos that have come out about Amber Ruby, and it does seem like it has a lot of legs, and especially it seems like a very, very strong mid-game deck, mid-range type of deck. I've noticed it's just and this Sarabi, man, this Sarabi seems really good. This new Amber Sarabi, where you exert it and you -4 strength on an opponent character, and then people just play a Headless Horseman on top of it. So it's a really good mid-range, kind of that 4, 5, 6 level characters and level cards. That's where I've realized the bread and butter of that. But yes, the person you're alluded to is Hannah. She asked about it and has been play testing that too, and also a lot of I have noticed she plays a very heavy, or likes to play a lot of songs, and I have also ran into that version as well. But yeah, I don't know though. The only kind of real input I have is me being a true control player, me playing these Amber Sapphire and now Ruby Sapphire again. Hopefully it does have the legs that people are talking about. A certain point, the Amber Ruby deck does run out of gas, and those decks will take over pretty easily, is in my limited experience with playing with those decks online. But yes, it does seem like a fun deck. I'm just excited because Amber Sapphire and Amber Ruby, 2 of the decks that traditionally haven't seen a lot of play, are now here, it seems like, or at least are very playable in a tier 2, tier 3 level. Amber Sapphire might even be tier 1. We'll see how good that plays out. But I'm excited to see these different combinations. And that's, me, I just want options. And we seem to be getting more and more over the course of the last 2 sets. So long answer for you. But yes, it does look fun, the Amber Ruby variation. But with that, we were talking about Winterspell a little bit core constructed. But the bulk of this episode, we want it to be limited. What's going to happen on release weekend? I know you 2 are already signed up, as you already alluded to. We'll see if I'm able to make it. I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. But either way, if I'm not able to make it, I will live vicariously through you, and I wish you luck on all your polls, gentlemen. But let's get into the Winterspell limited discussion. We put a slideshow together of kind of the big hitters that we anticipate will be good for this Winterspell limited format. So we're going to scroll through them. We're going to do our best, gentlemen. We're going to do our best not to talk people's ear off on every single slide. We have a lot of slides. We're going to try and go through 1 or 2 quick points, and then we're going to move on. That's the goal. Audience, if we don't do that, please send us your comments saying you guys need to talk faster, and we will continue to work on it. But hey, when you're talking with your friends, sometimes you just talk a lot. So who wants to start with this first card? You guys have done a lot of seemingly put this, done a lot more research on this and put the slideshow together. So Ryan, let's start with you. Talk about the first card.
So first card we have on the screen, for those that aren't following along with the video version, is a 5-cost inkable 4/5 quest for 2 Stitch Carefree Snowboarder. Whenever this character quests, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, you may draw a card. So it's a card draw option, with a caveat that you have to set it up a little bit. Usually in some of these sealed matches or the limited format matches, it seems to be a lot of stalemates up until this. So playing this on curve, you probably have at least 2 other characters or at least 1 other character that you can then play another character the following turn to then draw that card with Stitch. But it's probably not questing more than once unless you have some sort of massive setup around it where you have a huge bodyguard to play with it or you have something else to protect it. I think this is a pretty good card. You're probably 4 or 5, 2 lore, quest, or get a draw card, and so it replaces itself, deals 4 damage to something, and gets you 2 lore. I rate it highly. I think if you happen to pull this in your sealed pool, you're very happy to include it in your deck. If you see this in draft, it's probably top 4 picks that you want out of your packs. At the very least, it's the 4th pick out of your pack. If not, top 1 or 2 picks out of your pack. So yeah, I like it. I think you'll see a lot of it out in the wild during pre-release weekend.
Anytime you see draw a card, it's usually a good thing, especially in sealed formats. So this card, I think if you can get a couple of these in your deck, you're going to be really happy. And especially so if you, to your point, Ryan, if you can happen to pull a bodyguard to play after it. Okay.
I got nothing else, man. Card draw is important in this, and wherever you can get it, for sure.
Speaking of card draw, next one is Wisdom of the Willow. Maybe call this one Poor Man's Ohana Means Family, but 4-cost uninkable action. The rest of this turn, whenever one of your characters quests, you may draw a card. This could be a card, because I think when I remember back to some of my more recent sealed experiences, or draft for that matter, to Ryan's earlier point, there tends to be a lot of these stalemate boards where you both have a bunch of just upright characters. If you have a turn where you can quest 4 things or 5 things, and sure, they can positively trade into you, but you just drew 4 or 5 cards, you're just going to outvalue them if they don't also have some of their own form of card draw. I think this could be a card that would just break open your match entirely, where if you play this at the right time, it doesn't really matter if they get the positive trades because you have all the fuel to just keep laying down more threats, and they're going to run out of cards. Poke holes.
Draw card replaces itself. I think one theme that we'll start seeing here is that this is a really good limited set of cards, it feels like, because you have a lot of these replace itself, draw card value. We'll get into another song specifically in Ruby that I'm very excited about. But yeah, there's a lot of those options here. And to your point, Nathaniel, with this card specifically in Wisdom of the Willow, with the stalemate, it's almost like, okay, when's the time that I quest? Here, you can quest. Most likely, your opponent will do the best they can to trade into you, but you still get the gain of out-resourcing them from a card perspective. So it seems like a really good card in this limited format for sure.
I will be the voice of dissent here and say that this is a trap, and I would not play this in my sealed pool. It's an uninkable. There's plenty of other uninkables I would rather play that are going to do more and impact the board in a greater way. You may think about this as you quest with 5 things, you draw 5 cards, but it's not really a +5 in that sense in terms of card advantage, because you're losing a lot of board advantage that way, and that's not how I prefer to play. So for me, it's a huge trap. I wouldn't want to play this. I would prefer the other forms of card draw. If this is the only type of card draw I open in my sealed pool, then obviously yes, I'm playing a card that says draw a card because that's important. But if I have other options, this is probably one of my lowest options to play in terms of a card draw option, just because you lose so much board tempo by playing it. And yes, you have the card advantage, but card advantage only gets you so far. You gain the lore from the characters you've quested, and that's progressing you towards your endpoint as well. But I just don't think that this fits my playstyle for sealed, and I don't think that this is. I think this is bound to lose more games than it is to win more games for you. Is where I view it and where I rate it. So I would just leave this in the side deck that doesn't get played.
Man, Ryan's missing out when I quest for 8 and then I replenish with all my 1 and 2 drop 2 questers after he kills banishes all my guys. Yeah. Good point, and spoken like a more control player, I think, as well. So fair points, I think, on both sides. If you haven't noticed, too, we are going in ink order, so we're going to talk through a lot of amber cards first. This one, though, Ryan, surely this makes it into your list. Does it not?
Yeah, this one makes it in. I think this is filling two purposes, right? So this is a 3-cost inkable action. Ohana means family. Remove all damage from chosen character of yours. Draw a card for each 1 damage removed this way. So take a positive trade somewhere on the board. Your opponent gets worried about it, and then when in game 2, when your opponent knows about this card, now they have to try to actively play around it because it was game breaking in the game that you won in game 1. I mean, even that just mental pressure alone is worth it to play this card. It's a legendary. You're probably not going to see it. It's also an enchanted, which is a beautiful enchanted on the screen. You're probably not going to see that either, but if you do, this is a great card draw option. It rejuvenates the character you have on board, the high willpower character you have on board, and it offers you, an extra time to take something else of theirs off the board. Also, you get to draw the cards from all the damage you removed. Even if you draw 3 cards with this, that is way above rate, and I think you are over the moon because you get the 3 cards in hand plus the refreshed character on board. I would definitely play Ohana Means Family in my sealed deck.
Yeah, this feels, I think, Ryan, to your point, like this is a card where if you play this later in the match where you do have like a big meat stick character down, and by meat stick I mean just like something with huge stats, 6'5", 6'6", or something, and it banishes something where it takes like a bunch of damage, but it barely survives that. The card draw from paying 3 ink is just so huge, and the heal aspect is... It is better than the Wisdom of the Willow, right? It's a better situation, and you don't have to commit so much of your board to do the thing. You just have to have one guy do like the swing into their thing. So it seems a bit more consistent, and it's inkable versus an uninkable. So that's also that definitely does matter.
I think I don't value this as a 3-cost card. I would consider this more of like a 6 or a 7 drop, if you will, because I'm not going to play it till that phase in the game usually, because I'd like to develop characters leading up to this. So on 3, I'd rather play a 3-cost character than play Ohana Means Family and draw a bunch of cards. But if I have like a 2/4 that traded into something that was a 3/2 and I get to draw 3 off of it, then sure, maybe I'll play Ohana Means Family on that turn. But I usually would consider this more of like a late game or just in a separate part of the curve where it's just going to be extra card draw outside of the curve.
Draws cards. It's good to me.
Again, you will see that theme in drawing cards. Okay, I think we're going to start to get a little bit more into some other ink combinations here. So Bambi, I've heard a lot about this card from other content creators as well, being just a huge potential card. Ryan, I think you're really high on this card, right? The 4-cost inkable 3/5 Bambi Ethereal Fawn.
Yeah, I am high on this card. I think this is really, really good in sealed. I think it's also really, really good in constructed. Mac, I included both of these cards on this slide, and I'm grateful this is kind of fresh for you. I want your impression on which one would be better, which one you would prefer to play, and if you feel they're different at all. So on the slide, there is 4-cost inkable Bambi Ethereal Fawn, 3/5, boost 2. During your turn, whenever it exerts, reveal a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards under him. Put all revealed character cards in your hand. Put the rest on bottom in any order. And then on the other side of the slide is a 4-cost inkable Alice, Well-Read Whisper, 4/4, boost 2. Whenever this character quests, put all cards from under her into your hand. They both quest for 1. So Mac, do you feel they're different? Would you play one over the other? What are your initial thoughts, on first read?
That's tough on first read. So when I look at Bambi is definitely, I am actually down on this card for constructed, just in general, because the caveat is you need a high character deck. So you better be building a deck that has at least 40 plus characters. Most likely you want to be around that 50 character range just to fully utilize whenever it exerts. Put those characters in your hand. With that being said, the Bambi gets more value whenever it exerts. So even if you play it, and when we see something like an Elsa come down that will force exert this, again, this is not limited. I'm just talking core constructed now. The force exert aspect of it you get the benefit. Now, moving into limited, I don't know if there are any cards here that are force exerted. So you're still going to get mainly get Bambi's like ability when you quest with it, right? So that being said, when compared to this and Alice, it's kind of feels like the same card in a sense, right? Whenever you quest, you get cards. But with Alice in this aspect, you put all the cards under her in your hand. So it doesn't have to be reveal characters and put them in your hand. You just get the cards from under her. The biggest thing that I see, though, is you need to make sure you're consistently boosting with Alice. Whereas Bambi, if you have 1 or 2 down, odds are you're going to at least pull 1 or 2 characters whenever you draw. I think the consistency with Bambi in limited seems a little bit higher, but I don't see much of a drawback with Alice in a limited format. But you just have to make sure you're utilizing that extra ink that you have to ensure that you're boosting her consistently in order to get that quote-unquote draw effect. I do like the attack power on Alice, a 4/4. I think that can be very valuable in a limited format when things start turning sideways and you want to be able to take over from a board advantage perspective. But yeah, this is just kind of quasi card draw, and either one of them I think needs to be in your deck if you end up pulling them regardless. But I kind of like Alice almost in this preference. It feels good. I'm not sure. What do you guys feel?
I think for constructed, I really see Bambi being quite great because it's just the fact that he exerts. So if you had to challenge, do some board cleaning up, you still get the benefit of that effect. If he sings a song, like a cood or something, right? Like you still get all that benefit and you still get to, do the thing for his effect. So I feel like Bambi could help kind of make the game, like run away with the game a little more if he's not immediately answered. I think I slightly prefer Bambi. I think from a limited perspective, they're both really good. I still might even like Bambi slightly more just because, again, like if you're on the draw and you're trying to like catch up, you could still do some stuff where like you're having him help clean up the board while also replenishing your hand. That always feels good.
I need to correct myself. I gave the Elsa example. When your opponent force exerts Bambi, I didn't read during your turn. So you can only utilize it during your turn. So to your point, if you exert him to sing a song, you still get that effect, right? I just think the deck list the opening deck list that I've been seeing with this Bambi from a core constructed, I see a lot of actions, and it seems weird that there's a chance that you're going to miss out on a lot. Granted, if you happen to have 2 or 3 cards under him and you pull 1 or 2 characters out of that questing or that exert effect, I should say, there's a lot of good card draw there. But I don't know. Alice seems almost simpler to pull off, whereas I think Bambi has the higher ceiling. Well, yeah, that's probably a good way to summarize it. Bambi has the higher ceiling, but I think Alice has the higher floor. But both seem very good in this limited format. Quest for the same, around the same amount of stats, both inkable 4-cost characters. So I think both will perform pretty well in this type of format.
I agree with those takes. Y'all made some really good points. One thing that I like about Alice over Bambi is that it's just cleaner. My brain likes tidiness, and so this is a very tidy card where you get the cards out from under her. You don't actually waste any cards from your deck. You get to see everything in your deck. Whereas Bambi, obviously, those boosted cards are stuck underneath Bambi, and you're drawing cards from your deck then instead, so you're never going to see those cards that are under Bambi unless you have some other way to get them out from underneath Bambi. In both situations, again, I don't think I want to play these on 4. I want to play them on maybe 6, so I can boost right away and then boost the next turn and get two out of it immediately. Because in both situations, these are going to be like top priority for your opponent to remove. These are banish on sight kind of cards because of the opportunity for them to run away with the game. And I think limited provides us unique opportunity to play some of these high ink cost boost characters, or high boost ink costs, I should say, because the end of the game, the later stages of the game, as long as you don't get run out of town with an aggro build, you have this like wasted ink all the time, usually, where you have this ink sink. Now you can just dump ink into these turn after turn after turn in order to then quest and get a bunch of cards, or sing and get a bunch of cards out from their effects. So I think I would slightly prefer Alice in the ink sink realm, just because I get to see all the cards in my deck, and that's just my brain likes that better than just pulling new cards off the top. Also, the fact that you might be able to get some, like, your 1 or 2 impactful removal out of the deck, rather than with Bambi you're just going to be pulling character after character after character. You don't get your removal spells out. That kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but at the same time, they're effectively equally good. They're ink sinks that are 4-cost ink sinks, and you get extra cards off of them, extra resources, is just what you're really looking for. So if you see either of them, feel free to take either of them. In a draft setting, if you see Bambi in your pack, you're probably going to pick Bambi, because you're less likely to see more Bambis in the future, because it's simply super rare versus the uncommon. So that being said, in a sealed environment, I'd gladly play both of them in my deck, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and as a general statement, just like cards that allow you to put cards underneath characters, so to help these like Bambi and Alice just expedite their abilities, really, I think those would be pretty important too. So when pulling these type of cards, maybe that's another focus you have in building your sealed deck, is finding those cards that allow you to quote unquote double boost, right? And that's the way I think about it. That just expedites your curve, and it makes what you want to do go a lot faster too. Just a general statement, and we'll point those out as we continue to go down the slideshow here.
Parting thought: when I Madam Mim Elephant bounce my Bambi back after he's done his thing, it's going to feel tremendous. All right. The next one is that aforementioned Force Exert, the only one that we know of, I think, in this particular set. That Force Exert something on when it's played on your turn, you can Force Exert one of your opponent's characters, and that is Vanderchill herself. So this is a 4-cost uninkable 4/4 quest for 1. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing character. A couple interesting things here with, I think, some of the Darkwing Duck stuff that's coming up this set is she is a villain, so that could matter. But I really like this card a lot. I think both in Sealed and Constructed, this is potentially going to have a home. I think for Sealed, this is really good because you get to break some of that like standoff board state. I've done a little bit of play testing with this. Early set release so far. I think this is a great card to play. Unless you're playing that Willow card, right? In Sealed or Draft, this is going to be coming down on turn 4. So you're not feeling terrible about like a 4/4 on turn 4, and especially if it means you get to make some really nice trade with at least one of your opponent's characters on that turn.
You mentioned the Willow card. I don't even think we talked about it on this podcast yet, but Grandmother Willow is a 2-cost uninkable character. That's a 1/2 quest for 1, and its effect says you play 1 less ink for the next character you play this turn. And it's not a optional effect. It's just if it's at the beginning of your turn and it's still on your board, it's the first character you play costs 1 less. So then you get a little bit of free ramp on a character body that way. So I don't think we talked about it, but just wanted to highlight that for anybody that may be following along.
Yeah, and I don't think, I guess you could play that in Limited. I wouldn't really love that personally, just because it's an uninkable, low cost. It's not really doing much for the board. Yeah, you could cheat some stuff out early, which could be good, but I personally don't really love that card for Limited, which is why it was not included in the slideshow. All right, let's move on. So I think one of this slide here follows the theme that we talked about with some stat inflating happening in Winterspell. So for those who are not looking at the screen right now, these are both 3-cost inkables. So the Amethyst card is Morgana Macabre, self-centered spellcaster. And the Ruby card is Taurus Bulba, the Steerminator. And both of these are 5/3 inkables, quest for 1. But they only cost 3 ink. 5/3 is a huge body on 3. I feel like being able to swing for 5 is just insane.
I would agree completely. Swinging for 5 is incredible. You trade up into 5 and 6 cost characters, the flip side of that, though, is you're clearly not surviving. And secondly, they are susceptible to, your opponent playing an Isis Vanderchill and then taking a positive trade up into you. That still doesn't feel that bad, though, because now they've used one of their removal options on this 5/3/1 quester, which is, they don't have it for when you drop a 2 or 3 quester later. So, I think these are really great cards to see in your packs to include in your deck, just as that board stall threat. You're going to create a lot of even board states or non-moving board states by dropping either of these onto the field.
Yeah, and Nathaniel, I think you talked about stats, right? And this brings up a good point about what you really want to do in sealed in general. And we can talk about these cards or just cards with big stats in a limited format. The best cards to play in limited, just to keep it kind of simple and low to the ground here, tend to be what we've learned are your 4, 5, and 6 cost characters, preferably inkable. But those characters that have big stats, and not necessarily cards that we'll see in core constructed. I mean, if for like a 5 cost character that might have a 6/6 body, that's crazy, because board control tends to be what we see a lot in a limited format, and trading up and being able to trade, use a character on multiple of your opponent's characters, kind of get that 2-for-1 effect. Now, these are great because they have big stats on the lower cost character, a 3 cost character. So for those of you who are going to be doing limited or don't have as much experience with limited, I know the first time I went into a limited format, I thought ultra aggressive, hyper aggro, that's what you want to do. And I got wiped, because by the time you run out of gas, and card draw, it is almost non-existent in this format. So that's why we keep pointing out when you see a card that says draw a card, it's super important too. But you tend to run out of your hand by like turn 4 or 5. That's pretty common. So then that's where the board control becomes very important. And those low cost characters, the hyper aggro style, they're really easy to trade into. And so that's something that I definitely had to lick my wounds the first time for sure. Beyond stats, obviously evasives are huge in this format as well, because they're harder to remove. So if you see an evasive card, most likely you're going to put it in your deck, or at least put it in the pile where, at least the maybe pile, and then as you're shuffling through what you want to do at kind of the last minute cards to put into your deck, that's kind of where you can put one into the yes or no pile depending on what you need. But evasives and high static characters tend to be what we see here, and those high static characters at the 4, 5, 6 slots are kind of your bread and butter on where you want to focus on. So just kind of food for thought. But these ones are huge because it's a 3 cost character with big stats. Just want to put that out there for the audience.
On that note, we have a couple other bigger statted characters now as we kind of move through Amethyst. Ryan, I know you're huge on both of these, both from a constructed and a limited fashion. I think I'll let you for sure talk. You can talk to both of these. I also want to probably piggyback with Marshmallow, because wow, what a card. But yeah, Ryan, take away our 5 cost uninkables here in the Amethyst ink color.
These might be the 2 cards I am most excited about in Amethyst for sure for this set. So Terran, Magically Armed, is a 5 cost uninkable 5/5 with Rush and 1 lore pip. With the effect, when you play this character, put up to 2 cards from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck in any order. So you're kind of filtering through either yours or your opponent's discard to remove the important cards, which has some synergies but nothing worth chasing. It's basically vanilla text in the limited format. In core constructed, though, this card seems tailor-made for a Blurple deck to have a run-in against a Amber Emerald Dogs deck, where you want to the Dogs players using their discard as a draw option for their big ladies that they're shifting or playing out, and so this kind of removes those options from them. It also helps with if you're playing if Maui Half Shark comes back into the fold, removing actions from your opponent's discard. So this is a good way to try to filter through your opponent's discard that is usually untouchable in pretty much every other sense for this card game. So Terran, great rush option. It's pseudo removal in that sense because it is a 5 strength character. It's probably clearing whatever it's hitting on the turn that it rushes. If you're able to survive for a turn, then maybe you get a free 2-for-1 out of it because your opponent feels like they need to clear it. Either way, you're still getting at least one character off the board, so it's pseudo removal. And in limited, the removal is a very, very sparse and few and far between will you find your removal options. So removal is of the utmost importance in a limited format. The other card on the screen is the Marshmallow Cranky Climber, 5-cost uninkable 5/5, quests for 2, with the effect whenever this character quests, each opponent can't ready more than one of their characters at the start of their next turn. So this, in a constructed sense, feels incredible. It helps you win races because your entire board is accessible to you, so you can quest everything, and your opponent only can choose a single card or a single character on their turn or on their field to ready at the start of their next turn. That doesn't mean that if they already have ready characters, they can't use them. It's just that only one character can ready at the start of the turn. And alternatively, if you're in a board control state where you need to lock down your opponent's board, this also accomplishes that task because if they quest out, they go to 16, and then you quest your Marshmallow, they can only ready a single character, which probably at most has 2 lore on it. And so you kind of pick away at your opponent's board turn after turn after turn, or just keep them frozen and try to race them at that point. In a constructed sense, this also curves perfectly into a card from Whispers in the Well, which is the 6-cost inkable Demona, Scourge of the Wyvern Clan, the 5/6 quest for 2 that exerts your opponent's board. So you play Marshmallow, you play Demona, you quest Marshmallow, and your opponent only gets 1 card to respond with from their board rather than the entire board. And you get 2 lore out of it. So Marshmallow, I'm super high on, love that card. I think it's going to be a staple of the constructed meta. And then in limited, Marshmallow feels like this really high skill ceiling card where you kind of create these awkward board states where you're in control of the awkwardness, right? You have the card that is causing the tension, and you can try to take advantage of it and make the most of it in the turns leading up to and after the card comes out, because you can quest with some things that your opponent thinks twice about removing because they want to exert that many characters and leave them frozen? Is this when they want to freeze their characters, or how do they get rid of Marshmallow if they don't? So both Terran and Marshmallow, great cards, great stats, uninkables that I would play in both constructed and sealed decks. So what are y'all's thoughts on these 2 cards?
I think the Marshmallow is interesting where he feels like he'll be better in constructed than in sealed. I think he'll still be really good in a sealed deck, and again, the uninkable piece is generally something you want to consider for both formats, but I think this into a Demona feels absolutely crazy, because it does just really hamstring the opponent, and that's a lot of Amethyst decks are kind of trying to do nowadays, it feels like, is curve into that Demona. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I do think there will be ways to play around this, particularly in limited, where, you just don't overextend your board and you wait for that opportunity to do that. But then again, if you get a wide enough board with Marshmallow and you just quest a bunch of stuff anyways, I think it's becoming clear that I'm just way more willing than Ryan to sacrifice my board.
Yeah, I tend to get impatient too, but yeah, I think these will be great. I think in the limited, I believe Terran will be pretty good with the rush. I think that's huge. Rush characters are huge in a limited format. But yeah, I think both will do fantastic. So can't go wrong.
All right, continuing our theme of Amethyst. This is a 3-cost inkable genie, magical researcher. He is a 3/4 boost 1, and this character gets +1 lore for each card under him. So I think, Ryan, this speaks really well to what you just talked about, where in this stalemate battle with your opponent where nobody really wants to exert for a few turns, you get to really put some pressure on your opponent with a clock by just boosting him every single turn, and eventually it's this genie's going to quest for 5, where that's really scary. And I think this is yet another card too where like if you have a bodyguard or two in your deck and you've kind of been building him up for a few turns, then you lay a couple of those down, this would be unbelievable. Again, I love to think of these like Fantasyland play lines, but it's an interesting stat line being a 3/4. It's not anything crazy on 3, right? As we just talked about how there's 2 5/3s on 3, but this effect in particular where we know there's going to be a lot of upright characters, this seems to really put some pressure on your opponent.
Well said. I think it's the surprise factor, especially with the boost. If you find other cards that allow you to put things underneath, this is a perfect target for that. So excited to see how this one plays out in that limited format side. Also another rare like Marshmallow. So these Amethyst rares are kind of crazy.
And boost 1 really too is really good.
They really are. I think this is another one of those high skill cap cards. It's going to be this awkward, like, is 3 lore enough for me to just quest it and let it get taken off the board? Because chances are your opponent's not letting this quest more than once. Otherwise, something's going horribly wrong, and you're going to win anyways, whether this was a 3/4 quest for 4 or a 2/2 quest for 1. That being said, like, is 3 enough? Do I wait till 5? Do I just let it sit there and risk, Isis Vanderchill or Let It Go or other options that are going to remove this card? Or do I just, turn it, get the value, and let it go, and just, like, let it get banished and then crack back with something else and try to, like, make sure that is favorable for me then in that sense? I think there's some, like, we talked about magical fantasy land of this would be crazy. A setting where like you've boosted Genie multiple times, you probably have like a 2/5 or a 3/6 or I think there's a 4/6 4-cost inkable vanilla, something with a lot of willpower, and your opponent banishes you quest your Genie, your opponent banishes your Genie, and then you crack back with whatever that high willpower character is, and then you play Ohana Means Family after that to like really hammer it home. I think that would be kind of cool to really get the cards back that you lost with Genie getting banished. I just think that would be magical Fantasyland perfect play line, but not likely to happen considering it's like multiple rares and a legendary that you have to string together perfectly on curve. But that being said, I still think this is a great card to play in your sealed or your draft decks. In draft, I'm probably not drafting it super highly, probably close to that like 4th card of the pack. It's the last rare left in the pack kind of thing, because I think there's a lot of really strong rares out there, but there's also a chance that pack didn't have great rares, and this would be one of the first things that you take out of the pack. So both sides of the coin, but I do think it's a good card in general, and I think it also sees a lot of play in Core Constructed, so that's a reason to draft it too if you're interested in picking up the card.
Well said. All right, a little bit bigger, and this is also on the note of the evasive piece here, and this is Lumpy, the Playful Heffalump. This is a 6-cost inkable evasive, and he quests for 2. So, as Mack touched on earlier, evasives are particularly strong in sealed or limited formats. They're really hard to remove, and this could potentially just stick on the board for the whole game, depending on what your opponent has. Because sometimes in these, like, I don't know about you guys, but there have been times where I've played sealed, I open my 6 packs, and I get like 1 or 2 evasives. And if you're playing a 40-card deck, there's a decent chance you just don't see those. So if you are able to play this on curve, this could quest multiple times freely and never get traded into and just keep going over and over again. He talked about, too, like, the stat line is also still pretty good. This feels like a card that could make its way into like a Blurple deck maybe, or some of the purple decks, because it is still a quest for 2 evasive 6 cost, which is a little bit of an awkward ink cost for some of the purple decks, I think. And I don't know, guys, 6/5 evasive is pretty big.
I got some. So this is probably the best card in the limited format. Not gonna lie, it's a 6-cost inkable that's 6/5 quest for 2, and it's evasive, and it's a common card. You're gonna see a lot of these. So if you see Lumpy, it should immediately go in your it needs to be in my deck pile, because it's way too good, and you might even see 2, maybe 3 of them, depending on your luck for the pack luck, because of its common rarity. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said. It's just so good, and in a limited format for sure.
Can we go back to Lumpy for a quick second? I want to ask a question of both of you. In a draft format, this is a common card. So this may be the first card you see in the pack. If this is the first card you see in the pack without looking at any of the other cards, are you just picking it and passing the pack to the next person?
I gotta look at the other ones personally to see what they are, but there's a decent chance I'm just keeping this, even if there are some like decent rares, just because it's so good in limited evasive already, and the fact that you would own the evasive battle pretty much for sure with this thing, it's just incredible for you.
Yeah, it's hard for me to not look at the rares and see if you have an enchanted in that specific pack. But yeah, this might be the one where you like over the rares and potentially legendaries, depending on what you're trying to look for. This is huge in that format. It's hard to pass up for sure. I think I only got 2 cards in the top of my head that can remove this instantly. One is Let It Go, and that's definitely in the list. But the next one is the next card that you're going to flip to is kind of the only other card that I can see to remove it on one fell swoop, and that's the Sven, 4-cost uninkable amethyst, the leaping reindeer. It's Rush, it's Challenger 3, it's evasive. Quest for 1, but it's a 2/3. So with that Challenger 3, it'll take out the Lumpy in one fell swoop. This card and the Let It Go that's it. And then otherwise Lumpy takes over your game. So and this Sven is a super rare, so it's gonna be hard to remove the Lumpy with this Sven. But if you happen to pull this Sven, even though the stats don't look great and doesn't quest for very much, to remove those big threats as a surprise factor, this Sven can come in and do some damage for sure.
One of the things I didn't realize with this card too, actually, is I didn't originally see the evasive line there, because he does have Rush, Challenger, and evasive, like just so many things on one card. But like this could be a card too where you could do some board cleanup and they can't crack back at him because he's evasive, right? So like he could remove a smaller character and just sit there and quest for a few turns because they don't have an evasive, and then eventually if it comes to racing time, he gets to trade up into something that has 5 or less willpower as well. So this could be like a huge value card, particularly in limited, where he gets to clear 2 things and get you some lore because he's evasive and they can't crack back. So kind of doing like what the Ruby Amethyst set 8 was really trying to do with all these rush evasives, right, where they could come in, banish your guy, and then you like couldn't swing back on them. So it really puts you in a tough spot because of how many evasives they had. This is kind of doing some of that, and the Challenger +3 is really nice. Okay.
To kind of close the loop on my Lumpy question, I think the only other card I would take other than Lumpy would be Let It Go if I saw it. I don't know that I would take Sven over Lumpy, to be quite honest with you, but that's just how I feel. 6/5 quest for 2, hard to beat that.
So this card,
Colors of the Wind.
This card's really interesting. I don't know. The more I look at it, the more I'm not totally loving it. In like a one-on-one in like multiplayer, this is probably incredible. But it's a 4-cost action and song. Colors of the Wind. A character with cost 4 or more can exert to sing this song for free. Each player reveals the top card of their deck. Draw a card for each different ink type of cards revealed this way. I think the saving grace here is that it's a song, so you could exert one of your things and draw at least one. Hopefully you draw 2 cards. I think in that world it feels pretty decent if you can just exert something and draw 2. But I think the fact that like there is a chance that you just both reveal like an amethyst card, and this turns into like you had to exert your thing to just replace the fact that you played Colors of the Wind, and that doesn't feel that great. So the more I think about it, the less I'm in on this card. The Enchanted is beautiful, so hopefully you pull that. The more I look at this, the more I'm like, maybe it's not that great. What are you guys' thoughts?
It's a song that draws 2 cards. I think it's incredible, and I will be playing it in my sealed deck if I see it.
It is a super rare, so that you probably would only see one of these, if for what it's worth, if you do end up seeing it. Okay, we are into Emerald now with a 4-cost uninkable Yao Snow Warrior. I just love the Mulan characters; they're so great. This is a 4/3 quest for 2. During opponent's turns, this character gains resist +2. This seems really good.
Yeah, kind of the stalemate board that we've been talking about. This might make you feel better about just turning this sideways and seeing if your opponent has an answer because of the resist 2. Kind of another theme that I'm just noticing, 4-cost uninkable, kind of big in this. We did have the 2 5-cost uninkables, but I know there's another one in Ruby. But yeah, excited for this one too.
I think on that note, Mac, do we have like a general consensus for like if you're building, I know draft has now dropped to 35 cards and sealed is 40. Is there generally a number of uninks you're kind of targeting this number or less? I think it historically was like 8 was like the max you'd ever really want for like a 40 card deck. Like that's pretty aggressive, is to have like 8 uninkables. What do you guys think? What number are you? Obviously 0 would be amazing, but like what's generally the number you're kind of thinking, like this or less for uninkables?
Yeah, I don't think I go over 6. Anything over 6 makes me feel a little nervous. It's tough though because we're seeing a lot of good uninkable ones. In a pinch, you might be able to convince me on a 7th or an 8th if you have more of those maybe card draw options to get through your deck. But other than that, I tend to stay around your 5 or 6 range because I'm not going over 40 cards. I don't even think you can. I think you just build 40 cards, but I don't know the rules off the top of my head. So yeah, around that, a little over 10% of your deck is uninkables. I think you're feeling okay because 4 would be 10%, right? So I personally don't go over 6 when I'm trying to build a deck.
And I agree with Mac. I generally try to look in that 4 to 6 range of maximum uninkables in my sealed deck for draft. Then 3 to 5 would be the range that I would consider for uninkables in that deck. Even if you have a ton of card draw, I would still not go over 6 just because you end up with some really, really bricky hands that can just lose you the game outright. And that always feels really bad just to lose because you only saw your uninkables and you only got to like 3 ink and you have 4, 5, 6 cost uninkables that you can't even play yet. And so I would just say no more than 6, so that 4 to 6 range for a sealed deck and 3 to 5 for a draft deck. And I think you can build. I think it's just minimum of those numbers for your deck counts. I think you can build over that if you want. Draft, I don't know, but sealed you can go over.
Yeah, and I think that the last parting note on that is, generally for these events, you might have like 35 pretty good cards, and the last slots might just be like inkables that are okay cards, right? So I think that's to Mac's point. You're usually not going over because of the fact that the card quality starts to dip pretty considerably at a certain point, and you're just kind of trying to get to that minimum number. Usually, I think is what you see. If you have some amazing pulls, then more power to you. If you pull 40 plus really strong cards out of your 72 in sealed, that's just super lucky. Okay, next one. Mac, do you want to introduce Ling?
Yeah, Ling, the Emerald Snow Warrior, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 2. He's a 3 cost inkable with the text or the ability Building Muscles. You pay 1 ink, chosen character gains +1 strength this turn. At first glance, you might think, ooh, he quests for a lot for a 3 cost character, and that's how I did it too, my first limited event. Don't do that. I think what's really good about this one is that Building Muscles. So don't feel obligated to turn sideways just because you see him be able to quest for 2. Reason being is in limited, you see a lot of these weird states where you have an extra ink or 2. And this is where that Building Muscles ability really comes in clutch. And you can buff other characters to then trade up. Maybe a lower cost card can then trade up to one of your opponent's higher cost cards. So I think that's where the value in this card is. It is a 3 cost. And like we alluded to before, your bread and butter tends to be 4, 5, 6. So you'll want a limited amount of 3 cost cards. Granted, this is a rare, so lower likelihood that you're going to pull it. But keep that in mind. Another point we want to make about limited just in general. I have had decks where I don't have any 1-drops. Maybe you have like 2. That's about it. And then 2-drops, maybe you have 4. But it's not uncommon to see none of those. And sure, you want to make sure you have a healthy board state. But especially for turn 1, it's not uncommon, especially if you're on the play, to just say ink pass. So just something in mind to maintain that card advantage too against your opponent. Because on the play, it does actually feel bad because card draw options aren't as common to dwindle your hand quicker than your opponent on the play. Just something to keep in mind.
Okay, I need to say something about this card that I am just reading now that makes this seem even better. This is pay 1 ink, chosen character gets +1 strength this turn. I don't see anything on this card that says you can't use that multiple times on your turn.
Unlimited, as long as you have the ink.
So like if you pulled this later in the game and you're sitting on like 6 ink, pay 3 to play this, and now you get to choose in increments of 1, buffing multiple characters by 1 each, 1 by 2, 1 by like that's really strong. This card actually kind of feels amazing, to be honest. I remember there was I think it might have been set 7 where some of the, not the Chromicons, maybe it was whatever those items were that you could like give strength or take away strength or maybe move a damage if you exerted it, whatever. They ended up being like kind of impactful. I think the Ruby one in particular during Limited, because you could give your stuff extra strength over and over again. So like all your stuff was like always trading up. This feels like a card like that where, man, if you get 1 or 2 of these, I would definitely like to have this in my deck because you can ensure that your things are always trading up and you can surprise your opponent with that move. That seems super nice. Okay, gosh, this card's so cute. Vixie, the Forest Friend. This is another 3 cost, 1/3 quest for 2 with evasive, mind you. If you have a character named Todd in play, you pay 1 ink less to play this character. I think this is entirely here as this set's version of the famous 1/3 evasive stat line, that quest for 2. Like Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, the Amethyst one, it can just sit there and quest away against a lot of people if they don't have evasives in their deck, and that's really good.
I think my one key point on this is the text. So you pay 1 less if you have a character named Todd in play. Don't chase in like a sealed setting or a limited setting. I would not recommend chasing synergies like this card has unless you already have a Todd that you want to be playing. So if you only have a single 1 cost character and it happens to be the 1 cost 2/2 Todd, then great, put it in your deck and you might see it just in time right on curve with Vixie, but it's probably not going to happen. Vixie is simply a 1/3 2 questing evasive character, and evasive is hugely impactful, and that's why I think it's a very good card for a limited setting.
Yeah, well said. Speaking of evasives, we have this underdog that we've talked a little bit about, kind of hyping up this new term, and this is the White Rabbit. This is the Emerald underdog. He is a 2 cost 2/2 evasive quest for 1. If this is your first turn and you're not the first player, you pay 1 ink less to play this character. Again, it's an evasive. You can get it out as early as turn 1 if you are the second player, if you're on the draw. That's super good. Not a ton of evasives, so not a terrible card to have in your deck, particularly in the 2 cost slot. And he's inkable.
Yeah, I think all underdogs are worth just a second look for this format. Not to say that you're going to end up putting all of them in your deck, but just a second look because their stats for playing on turn 1 are really good. And then, yeah, to this point, if it has evasive, it's also worth a second look. So keep that in mind as well.
Okay, now we've got one of our Todds. This is a 4 cost Todd, Playful Kit. He is a 2 strength, 4 willpower, 2 quester. Whenever this character quests, choose 1. Gain 1 lore, or chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. That's super interesting. Because yet again, I'm starting to see with like Emerald here, guys, you could kind of build like a pretty nasty aggressive deck that's just full of these evasives, and if they don't have many answers, they just kind of lose on the spot. Because the Todd could just give itself evasive.
Right. And then it becomes a 4 cost 2/4 evasive quest for 2. We've seen that somewhere before, I feel like. In all of Core Constructed since Azurite Sea, 4 cost 2/4 quest for 2 with evasive. Oh, yeah. Genie, everyone's favorite Amethyst 4-drop. Genie's uninkable, too, and Todd is more flexible than that, as inkable, even. So that's really interesting. I think Todd will see a lot of play. If I see Todd in my limited pools, I'm going to try to put him in my deck. Obviously, this is top 4 cards in the pack kind of situation, too.
Yeah, this feels also like a really strong potential closer because of the fact that you can basically just have him effectively quest for 3 because you can get that gain 1 lore. So if you're kind of in your closing state and you don't really care about the evasive or not, you can just get the extra lore and put Lorthel down even earlier. So yeah, this card's really good. Okay, a couple more Emerald cards. We have Strike a Good Match, and this is a reprint. Yes? Yeah, it's got to be. A character with cost 2 or more can exert to sing this song for free. Draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. This feels like a really great value card because you get to see more of your deck, kind of clean up some things. Cheap being the fact that it 2 costs. So if you did have that White Rabbit underdog, forego one lore and have it sing this and filter your deck and gain some cards. That's kind of nice. And the other one is the 4-cost Education or Elimination action. It is also a song. A character with 4 cost or more can exert to sing the song for free. Choose one. You can draw a card. Chosen character of yours gets +1 lore and gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Or you can banish chosen damaged character. What do you think, fellas?
Yeah, I think that's huge. Anytime you see a banished chosen character, granted this one has to be damaged, but banish a character is huge too. You don't have to quote unquote sacrifice your own character to remove one of your opponent's characters, so that's big. You also have the option to draw a card and giving something evasive, as we've alluded to before. That's big. It's inkable. That's also great. One thing to keep in mind, we've talked a lot about actions and songs throughout this list. The bread and butter are characters, so don't overwhelm yourself with actions, items, and songs. Just keep that in mind. Again, it's limited. Odds are you're not going to pour a playset of Education or Elimination, but you want to focus. I would say when we're talking about the 40 count, I tend to have around 30 characters, right? So like that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to and that's a minimum. Sometimes it pushes up to 30, 35, right? So just depends on what you pull, but these are great in a pinch for those limited, pun intended, action and song spots in your deck.
Great pun. I think both of these just add consistency and options, and I would agree with Mac. Again, great point. I would have no fewer than 30. I usually aim for like 35, maybe 5 actions or songs in my sealed decks, and maybe 3 or 5 actions or songs in a draft deck too, just based on what they are. And those are mostly going to be draw a card or remove a card or remove a character kind of situation too.
Yeah, speak for yourselves, guys. Last set, if I could get 10 detective badges, I'm pouring all those into my sealed deck. Just kidding. Okay. 3-cost uninkable emerald item, Snow Fort, and this is your characters get +1 strength. And the second line of text is Barricade. During opponent's turns, your characters gain resist +1. So this is actually something where in a stalemated board state, this is absolutely incredible, especially because odds are they're not going to have a whole lot of item removal. Very likely going to have none. So you just get +1 strength, and when they want to swing into your stuff, you also get resist. I think this card legitimately could just straight up win you a game. Like, just on its own. As long as you don't brick crazy other ways, this just makes your board so hard to deal with.
It's an awesome stat buff, I say. Let's cut
there
that.
It is!
Let's
there
cut
it
that.
Is. It happened. It really did. So Snow Fort, I think it's almost a trap, but I also think that it might be slept on too. The plus strength plus resist is huge. It is great in a like an aggressive deck, or even in like a control deck if you get the extra strength. I think it's incredible. It's hard to include it in a deck. I would not include it if you have other good uninkables, but if you are lacking uninkables and you're just looking for extra power to boost your characters with, you feel like your characters are always just like 1 strength too little, this would be a great card to include. Also, it lets them survive the opponent's turns. I love that happened, Mac. I love it.
I think to your earlier point too about the fact that you really want to focus on characters. Yeah, it could definitely be a trap. I don't think you'd want to include more than like maybe this is like a one of, right? And it can just be a fun surprise where it really changes what your opponent's plans are, I think, once this comes down. So, but I don't know. I think this card looks really cool as one of your non-character slot things. But again, it's uninkable. In the wrong situation, it's just kind of a dead card in your hand, so that's scary too. But I think it's pretty decent. I'd throw one in.
It's me waving the white flag. I'll see myself out. Let's just move to the next card.
We're into Mack's favorite ink color. We're on to Ruby. And also fitting, we have a duck, a couple ducks. So this is a 2-cost uninkable Scrooge McDuck and a 4-cost uninkable Scrooge McDuck. The Ghostly Ebenezer is a 2-cost uninkable 3/3, boost 1, and this character gets +1 strength and +1 willpower for each card under him. So I think about that topic of like floating ink. This can become pretty scary over the course of a couple turns. You just get to be really efficient with your ink well in a limited fashion. I don't know that I would want to have a ton of these in my deck because it is a 2-cost uninkable, and as we kind of mentioned, that's just not a slot you want to be stuffing tons of cards into your deck with. But the saving grace here, right, is that if you were to top deck this later, you just play it and then immediately boost it, and now it's a 4/4, which like isn't that terrible.
Yeah, I think it's a good trade-up value. The 4-cost uninkable, that's the one I'm more excited about because, again, it has that draw card. And it takes away lore from your opponent, which is huge. I don't think you'll ever get to a point where your opponent has 0 lore when this Scrooge is on the board, but if you do, that's great for you. So I think, though, with the 2-cost uninkable, it pairs really well, again, with those cards that just slide right under. So the more you can trade up with this card, the better, obviously, with the Ghostly Ebenezer. So I'm starting to look at all of these like uninkable slots. Like it's going to be hard to choose what you want for uninkables, so keep that in mind. Granted, a lot of the really good ones are the rares and super rares, but there's some value here in the uninkable slots that you really need to consider when trying to choose where you want those to go.
Yeah, and on that note, the 4-cost uninkable Ebenezer Scrooge is a 4/3. Whenever this character quests, each opponent loses a lore. You draw a card for each one lore lost this way. So that's just like a lot of value, right? Like if you play this, even if he gets traded into and he quests for 1, you gain 1, they lose 1, and you draw a card. That's pretty good. There's definitely worse things you could be doing on turn 4. So I wouldn't mind having at least one of these. And again, it's a super rare, so you're probably only going to have one at your disposal.
All right, next we have Maui Snow Slider, a 4-cost uninkable 4/3 that has quest for 2 and has a rush. So it's nerfed Hero to All, but quest for 2 instead of being reckless. So that's pretty cool. Also, we have 4-cost uninkable Slushy Glacial Guster, 5/5 evasive quest for 1. I think this is the one I'm more excited about. It's a 5/5 evasive on 4. I think this is definitely taking one of my uninkable slots.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm going to correct myself from a previous statement. What can get rid of Lumpy? This Slushy is the thing that can get rid of Lumpy. So keep that in mind. It's an uncommon, and in a pinch, this is a good answer to that Lumpy card. Maui's great. Rush is awesome in limited, and it's quest for 2. So yes, I love the discount Hero to All aspect that you put to that. They're trying to, with 2 cards in Winterspell, it's 2. They split Hero to All in 2 different cards, so we'll get to that one. I think it's in the next couple slides here.
We are about to get to it. Mack,
Go ahead.
I think you have to share this one. This is your guy.
I really like the Liquidator, the underdog for Ruby. He's a 4/2 reckless, so you are forced to challenge. The one thing, though, with the stale board states, he doesn't quest for anything, so keep that in mind. But for the stats, he's really good. And it always worth a second look, these underdog cards for sure.
And this is the Liquidator. If this is your first turn and you're not the first player, you can play him for 1. He's a 4/2. That's just a massive stat for something that's coming out as early as turn 1 if you're on the draw. Okay, the other half of the Maui hole. Copper on the scent. This is really the top end of your curve in a limited fashion. So like keep that in mind for Copper, but he's an 8/5 rush. This character can challenge the turn they're played, and he's also reckless, so again, he has to challenge if he's able to, but probably almost every single time he's taking at least 2 things with him, and generally in a limited fashion, or really any Lorcana, right? If your one character is taking 2 of theirs, that's usually a really good thing. The fact that really nothing can survive a Copper challenge is also pretty amazing. So unless it's evasive, they're probably getting 1 shot to the banish pile. Ryan, I'd be curious for you to talk about Willie the Giant.
So Willie the Giant is a 4-cost inkable 7/7 boost 3 quest for 2. The Food of Generosity. This character can't quest or challenge unless you put a card under him this turn. So 3-cost tax every single turn just to quest or challenge with him, but he is giant. He's a 7/7 quest for 2. More so just like sitting there as this giant threat for your opponent to think about. More just an intimidation factor, not so much as an effective quester or board control option. I think this is probably like the 40th card in my sealed deck, or my 35th card in my draft deck. But I do think it's still interesting to think about and include in your deck, just in case, especially at the end of the game, you to end up top decking a 1-cost character, unluckily, and now you have 3 extra ink at least to do something with. Now we have Willie the Giant on the field. You can swing away and take whatever you want off the field. So I think that's interesting. It's at least interesting. I don't think it's top pick, but I think it might make the fringe cut, depending on what else you pull in your pool.
Mac, you're singing Ruby songs.
My favorite song in this set, Marching Off to Battle, the 4-cost inkable song for Ruby. If a character was banished this turn, draw 2 cards. Now, if you're able to banish, you need to play this card, right? With stale board states, it's few and far between, or surprisingly few and far between, that people start turning sideways. But once they do, you can banish something and then utilize its card draw effect, which is great. So I think it's probably going to be better in core constructed, or it will be better in core constructed. But anything that says draw on it is pretty good. So worth a second look.
Yeah, and especially with it being a song too, right? Just being able to exert to draw 2, that's really, really nice. So you banish something with one thing, and then with another thing you sing this, get that card advantage up in your limited. Grab your bow. Mac, this is another one I think that you were particularly excited about. This, again, I think we talked about this in the past, being a really direct answer to everyone's favorite Genie Elsa combo. This is a 5-cost song, or an action. Grab your bow. A character with cost 5 can exert sing the song for free. Banish up to 2 chosen characters with 2 strength or less. So it might not be... This actually could be a card where like it's like decent in limited, but in constructed, I think this card's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head there. The fact that stats are the name of the game for limited, it's hard to find a lot of characters with 2 strength or less to utilize the banish aspect of this card. However, I think it's worth just mentioning this card because it's one of the few, if not the only card that just banishes characters. So just keep that in mind. Worth putting in the maybe pile when you pull it, and then deciding once you get to those last 5 or 7 cards or so. But it will take up a valuable uninkable slot. Keep that in mind too.
Worth noting, I think, when we talked about the evasives, right? Pending what you draw, this could be something you just want to slot one in, where like if they did, your opponent does get like Todd and, the rabbit or some annoying evasives that you can't deal with. This could be one of your few answers to it if you don't have your own evasive. But again, it's uninkable, so that's not amazing. But to your point, there's not a ton of removal. Okay. 4-cost location. We haven't talked about any locations yet. This is the Graveyard of Christmas Future, a 4-cost inkable location. It costs 1 to move stuff here. It is an 8 willpower brick house, 1 lore pip. Whenever you move a character here, put the top card of your deck under this location face down. At the start of your turn, you may put all cards from under this location into your hand. If you do, banish this location. Thoughts, guys?
I think this is a very good value card. I think that if you have extra ink floating around at the end of your turns, it just costs 1 to move it here and kind of load it up for the future. It also creates this very awkward decision for your opponent to make during these games. If you have enough of a board already established, this again is like in my mind, like a 6-cost card, not a 4-cost card. You establish your board on 1 through 5. On 6, you drop this, move a couple of things in, and then now you're stocked up where 4-cost draw 2 is kind of the effective rate that we've established in this set for draw card efficiency. And if it happens not to get challenged at all during that first turn it's sitting there, then maybe you take a risk and move a couple more things and put a couple more cards underneath and really stock it up and plan to cash it in when it's at 3 or 4. But even at draw 2 for 4 cost and gain a lore, that is worth it to me. If your opponent decides to remove it immediately, okay, you lost 2 cards from your deck, but at the same time now your opponent has exposed their board and you've broken the stalemate that you were hoping to break. So I think in the right setup where you have a lot of high strength characters ready to take advantageous trades on the follow-up turns, I think that this is an interesting location to think about. In general, locations are not very good to play in a limited format just because characters are everything, and if it's not a character, it probably needs to remove something, or it needs to be a very efficient card draw option. So I think I'm interested in this card as a card draw potential, but it's not going, again, it's probably like the 40th card or the 35th card that I'm including in the deck, not the first or second card.
I think that's fair. Okay, we're into Mack's other true love, which is Sapphire. And this is the Pete. I think we've talked about this card already. It's another solid card because it can turn into card draw for you. It's a boost 1, 5 cost, inkable, 5/5, quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, look at a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards under him. Put 1 into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I think this can be just like a potential card filterer for you. Or again, you got some of this floating ink. You can kind of utilize that in a nice way. But it is going to at least most likely replace itself, which is already good. And a 5/5 body, well, at least one thing trades into it. So I think just generally a solid card. I'm including it in my deck if I see it.
Great stats, and you draw a card. That's all you need to know.
This might be one of the best for limited as well because of the, I don't know, maybe it's better for constructed, but this is the Sapphire Moana. She's a 5 cost, 4/4. You can ink cards from your discard. She quests for 2. The stat line isn't that amazing, but the fact that you can start inking from your discard, that's really nice. So depending on how your deck is built, this could certainly give you some really nice card advantage options because you're not having to ink from your hand.
I think if you see Moana, it kind of enables this greedier line you can do. You can include maybe 7 or 8 cost cards in your deck because you may actually get there if you actually have a Moana out on the field. I would still not include the 7 or 8 cost cards because they're giant traps, but usually it's probably a 5 cost, draw a card because you're inking 1 from discard instead of from hand, quest for 2, which is pretty okay. I mean, it's a pretty middle of the road card for limited, but for constructed, I think it's incredible. And if you see a Moana, you're taking the Moana no matter what it is. If you're in draft, probably just because she's legendary or she happens to be the iconic that you pulled out of your pack, which you're going to be over the moon about taking.
Yeah, I think you tend to get into a lot of board states where you have, because you want your 4, 5, 6 cost characters, you tend to have a lot of those in your hand. And this just provides an option for you to not ink those really good cards. So you just ink from your discard.
Well said. And the iconic is absolutely gorgeous.
Other ramp options in Sapphire for this set. Jiminy Cricket, 3 cost, inkable, 3/4. Boost 2, quest for 1. And look into your past. Whenever you put a card under this character, you may put a card from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted. So kind of a on 5. It's a cut rate Moana, if you will. Play the Jiminy Cricket, boost it for 2 for 5 ink total, and put a card from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted. Congratulations! Now you're at 6, and you've inked for your entire game now. Alternative option there, Belle, Snowfield Strategist, 4 cost, inkable, 2/3, quest for 2, winter stockpile. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may put that card from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted. She's super rare. You're probably not going to see a lot of her, but she is incredible in terms of ink efficiency and card efficiency. You are turning the cards on field into cards in your inkwell as well, and she sees herself get banished if she ever does get banished by something like, say, Grab Your Bow. She would ink herself. So at the very least, it's a 4 cost, 2/3, 2 lore that draws a card. And with a pretty enchanted attached to it, which is surprisingly similar to the same art in both the normal and the enchanted. Interesting little tidbit there.
What more do you need to say about Let It Go? This card has long been a premier removal option. You can do it to ready or exerted characters, and the fact that you can sing it, this is so good. This could help you for sure win one of your limited games, or more than one, just because of the fact that you could hold on to this for the biggest threat that they have, and then sing this, and off you go. So for those who haven't seen this card before, maybe you've come post-rotation, this is a 5 cost song, Let It Go, and you can put chosen character into their player's inkwell, face down, and exerted. So clean removal, kind of like Hades, but it's a song that's a little bit cheaper. Ryan, was this you? The Tiny Crutch?
Yeah, Tiny Crutch. Since 1 costs are effectively useless in this format and in this set, they're not great. This is one of the 1 costs that, maybe it sneaks in as the only 1 cost item I would play, or the only item I would play. That and maybe Snowfort, we'll see. But it's a Tiny Tim's Crutch, 1 cost, inkable. At your side, exert this card, and chosen character gains support this turn. I think support is really strong in Limited, where you can quest with something, you get the lore, plus you give it strength to something else to trade up. It's really effective if you have like a 2 lore quester that's on a bigger body. Say Moana, you quest Moana, give support to your 1 or 2 cost character. Your 1 or 2 cost character then clears the 4 or 5 cost character that would be threatening Moana. Therefore, Moana gets to stick around for another turn and get you more advantage. So I think that this, because turn 1 is so like low impact, and this is inkable, where if you see it later, you're just going to ink it anyways. It is probably the worst top deck in the world. That being said, it's still, I think, worth including as a 1 or 2 1-cost cards in your deck, because the 1 costs are not that great.
Fair play. I put this text in here because it's kind of funny. I don't know. This Kanga had I had my eye on this card just because it's a 5-cost 5/5 inkable, so that matters. She's a 2 quester. While there's a card under this character, she gets +1 lore. I kind of felt like this would be a potential closer for you. Or really start to expedite the clock for your opponent, where if you play her and then the next turn you use some of your floating ink to boost her, that's pretty good. A 5/5 that quests for 3 now. That seems pretty nice. And it's a must answer then for your opponent. Probably not in your top 30, but maybe it's towards the back end of that last 5. And now we are into Steel.
I will say the one card that we didn't include in this slide deck that is Sapphire, and I think it's worth mentioning, is that legendary Scrooge McDuck. If you do pull it, I think it's good because it gives kind of this double boost effect. We've talked a lot about these boost characters. So something to keep in mind for that Scrooge McDuck. I think it's called like Reformed Christmas tier or something. No, I made that up. But it's like, Reformed Ebenezer. When you play this character, you put the top card of your deck face down under each of your other characters. So kind of that double boost. And so Ryan did mention it's really hard to make synergies work. This might be an option if you do happen to pull a lot of boost characters and this card, something worth thinking about. But now we can move on to Steel.
Kind of piggybacking on Mack's point there, there's also an Emerald legendary we did not talk about, the 4-cost inkable Donald Duck, where if you use boost on a character, you can put another card from under your top of your deck underneath that character too. Again, that's one of those like synergy pieces. As a card itself without extra text, it's not very good. But if you have a bunch of really good boost characters, then maybe it is worth. And it's a legendary. If you're in a draft, you're probably going to take the legendary anyways. And in a sealed setting, you may just like leave it off to the side. But if you have a ton of good boost characters, then you'll put it in. But I just don't think it's good enough to warrant top 4 consideration.
All right, the next one we have, speaking of top consideration, the Li Shang 3-cost Steel Solemn Sun. He is a Challenger +2. Quest for 1, 2/5, but because of that Challenger +2, he gets to become a 4 or 5 while challenging. That's pretty good. With the willpower there, he's probably going to survive a lot of challenges earlier on in the match, so that's always nice. I'll be honest, I don't love the shift option for him. I almost wish it was flipped, and it was a 5/9. Because then it would survive a lot longer.
I agree completely. I think the shift option is a giant trap, even though it only shifts for 4. I don't think you play the shift option. I just thought it would be interesting to include it here because the 3-cost I think is really good, and I think the shift option is not good.
Yeah, like seeing so the for those who aren't watching, the shift option is a Li Shang Valiant Leader. He's a 7-cost shift for 4, so that's a really nice discount quest for 2. And that awesome strength of 9 looks so great until you see his willpower's 5, and you see how many things can swing for 5, and it's like, oh man, he just kind of gets cleared after 1, and if you shifted, that's kind of like 2 characters now, right? So you're going to lose essentially 2 characters worth of cards for potentially like a Macabre, right? Like she swings for 5, so that would their 3-cost would take out 2 of your things. So that wouldn't feel amazing. But yeah, I think the base Li Shang, quite good. There's definitely worse options you could be doing on turn 3. This one is just a meat stick, you might call it, or a stat stick. This is the Prince Naveen. It's a vanilla 5-cost inkable 7/6. I'm telling you right now, if I see this, I'm for sure putting it in my deck because a 7/6, it's going to, other than copper, right? Like this thing is going to be around for a while. Take 2 things with it or more. So this thing's amazing.
If I see this and Ohana Means Family, I am over the moon, and I can't wait to pull off the combo.
Yeah, it's a beef stick for sure. That's all you need to know for this card. And that's very important as you're building these 4, 5, and 6 type of cards.
Yeah, imagine your Prince Naveen bundled up, one shots the Pete that they have on their side that was potentially going to draw them cards, and then you pull the Ohana Means Family and you draw 5. That would be amazing. Interesting. We do have a 1 cost here. Gantu. I don't love this card for limited.
Because
this looks like a trap.
Hand economy is so important. I agree with you completely for limited. For constructed, though, I think it's intriguing.
So this is the 1 cost Gantu. He is a 3/3. When you play this character, choose and discard a card, which sounds bad, but because of the fact that that's the cost, right, of getting out a 3/3 on turn 1. If you have a million draw cards in your limited deck, maybe you play this, but otherwise, you might just be using Gantu as ink.
This is a trap card, but if you're running low on ink, yeah, just put it in your deck and ink it. That's all I got.
I really like this Amos Slade card. It is interesting, again, once again, the uninkable 4 slot rearing its head. This is Amos Slade. He's a 6/4, 4 cost uninkable. This character can challenge as if they had evasive because he has alert. So this is a really great answer to Lumpy, right? As well as just any evasives. If you stick this down on turn 4, it kind of stops the potential avalanche of questing from those evasives. I really like this card, you guys. This is McHorn, the Ice Cold Officer. He is a 6/5 bodyguard, so he enters play exerted. This feels like a card where if you can get this like on the play and you play this down and just to protect some of your really important stuff that might be higher questing, this could really help swing the game pretty far wide open for you.
I like the curve where it fits as a bodyguard, as a 5 cost bodyguard. It's also inkable, so if it doesn't work out great, then perfect. But as a 6/5 bodyguard is massive. It's taking whatever swings into it down with it, and probably takes 2 things to clear it, and protects your questers behind it, so you get to have like a free turn, if you will, where you just sacrifice McHorn to quest away or do whatever else you want with your characters. So I like it exactly where it fits in the curve, especially.
Yeah, these beefcake bodyguards are huge in limited format. So it protects all your fragile things, your weenies, as Nathaniel would say, and allows them to quest twice. I think a perfect example is like the Genie we talked about, the 3-cost Amethyst Genie. If you've been sitting on boosting this card, then you can put this down, protect the Genie, and potentially quest with it twice. So cheating extra lore. That's just one example, but yeah, the bodyguards are huge in my opinion in a limited format.
Angel, Experiment 6/4, 4-cost inkable 3/3, untouchable. While you have no cards in your hand, this character gains resist +2. Probably going to happen in a limited format. Good aim. Once during your turn, you may choose and discard a card to deal 2 damage to chosen character. It's not a mandatory trigger, but it is something that everything in your hand turns into a potential damage. So end of the game, you take your top deck, you see, oh, that's not a very good card. I don't really want to play it anyways. I'm just going to discard it, deal 2 damage to the opponent's characters. Hopefully you remove something with that 2 damage. Now your Angel has resist +2, so maybe you swing into something and you take only 2 damage back from a 4 strength character. Angel survives, lives to the next turn, and then you can keep questing away. It's kind of this board control option. Also, is just resist +2 is really hard for a lot of things to deal with. Stats a little bit low, but with these 2 effects combined, if it's a legendary or an enchanted, if you see it, I would recommend taking it.
This feels like a really flexible card, which is generally a pretty good thing in any type of deck. I think to your point, Ryan, this could potentially help because of that flexibility. It could definitely help you. And with the legendary 1, maybe 2 if you're crazy lucky, you get to see of these. Probably worth a look. Lilo bundled up. I think we've talked about this character before. This is the 2-cost uninkable 1/2. During each opponent's turn, the first time this character would take damage, she takes no damage instead. So I think for one of the few like smaller characters, and again, this is super rare, you're probably only going to see 1. Again, 2 if you're super lucky. But if you're going to have like a 2-cost, there's definitely worse options for you, particularly on the play if you're a little bit lower. And again, if you could put a bodyguard behind this later while it's just kind of sitting there, you could really get a lot of lore out of this thing. But she's not going to do a lot for you as far as like board presence.
Yeah, like I said earlier, 1 costs are not great in this set, so your opponent's probably not going to have one. So this is probably questing at least twice because it takes 2 things on each turn to deal with it on any given turn. So even on turn 2 on the play, you're going to quest freely. On turn 3, maybe you quest freely if your opponent misses the 2 drops. Now you've gotten 4 lore out of your 2-cost character. highly recommend playing this card. It looks great in a limited format and a constructed format for that matter. This is crazy.
Yeah, this is one of those few 1 to 2 cost cards that are actually worth it in a limited format because it forces your opponent to over-resource in order to remove it. So I think that's huge in limited.
Yeah, or you just play this on turn 2 with your 4 pudge and you just win the game. All right, I believe this is our last card, and this is the Terror That Flaps in the Night, a 2-cost action, deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. If you have a character named Darkwing Duck in play, deal 3 damage instead. I don't think you need the Darkwing to make sure that this has to happen. This is just one of the few options to have direct damage dealing option for you, and that can be worth it. If you are going to have a non-character in your deck, this is certainly one of the better ones to include, and it's inkable, so that matters.
Removal is so sparse and limited that any type of removal that deals damage is just included by default.
Yeah, and for what's worth, I mean, it's a common, right? So you're probably going to see at least one in your packs, especially in sealed. I think you really good chance you see at least one of these. Can be really nice for some of that cleanup damage that you need to preserve your characters.
Yeah, removal is key for sure. And this is by no means a full exhaustive list for limited. There are definitely other cards in there that you could include, like the aforementioned Darkwing Duck. That is one of those high cost cards that you could consider to round out the top of your curve as an example. And there are a lot of villains, so something to look about too. That card is very effective against villain cards specifically, and we see a lot of them in this Winterspell set. That being said, let's put a wrap on this show, as this may be our longest episode yet. We don't know, especially at least with the 3 of us for sure. Maybe one of our guest pods have gone a little bit longer. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We post on YouTube. We post on Instagram from time to time. Please let us know your thoughts. What's your favorite limited card in this set? We'd love your thoughts. And maybe you can educate us too, because we are certified pickers. So when it comes to limited, we're still learning. That being said, it's always fun to chat with y'all. And gentlemen, let's get the duck out of here.